The 1980s were full of positive changes. The Berlin Wall came down. The Cold War was over. Computers got much smaller and much faster. Norman Sr., Norm Jr., and Bud would host a 60th anniversary gala and celebrate their accomplishments. In 1983, Rukert would get the use of a berth at Lazaretto back.
Dad and Mayor Schaefer saved us. They negotiated with the state and the Fed to get that property back to us, and they returned it to us in sand, where they cut through to put the tunnel under. They filled it with sand and built us a brand new pier over the tunnel, and then the terminal was all in sand, and then we actually paved it when it was freezing out. We were told, Harry T. Campbell, our friend Don Dean, told us that I can pave it, but I can't guarantee you it's not going to all crack up. So we got lucky. It was very, very cold, and so we paved it, took a chance, paved it, and it did not crack up.
Because once Norm and I got working it together, he didn't rush to come to work, and he
did. He rushed to come in and work on his books.
Work on the books, and
go home early.
And he'd go home early.
But he still watched us.
Yeah, well, he did, but he did. He wasn't domineering.
No.
And he gave us some elbow room to try our own ideas and to work it out without his injections.
Sadly, Norman Sr. would pass away from cancer complications.
The last project that he was interested in was building a replica of the original lighthouse. The original lighthouse was torn down in 1926. It was built in 1831.
The Lazaretto light, that's one thing that should never been torn down. That lighthouse was taken down about 1925. In fact, most people say Poe's story of the lighthouse came from that Lazaretto light.
And you would prefer that it became a historic monument?
Absolutely, it should have been.
They would complete the rebuilding of the Lazaretto Lighthouse and dedicate it to Norman on Defender's Day in 1985.
And in the fall of 1985, we had a big party here to open up the lighthouse and dedicate it to my dad. There's actually a plaque on the door about that. My Aunt Dorothy actually broke a bottle of champagne on the lighthouse. I think it took her a couple whacks to get it.
The Fort McHenry Tunnel would open to traffic in 1985, allowing cars and trucks to zoom just feet below the working docks and ships on the most expensive 2 miles of Interstate 95. 1985 was also the year the family would search for a new employee to help bridge the gap between the third and fourth generation of Rukerts. John Coulter, a recent Towson University graduate, was selected after a year-long vetting process.
I remember John Coulter just told me a story this week that I called everybody into the boardroom in I guess maybe, what year did he start, Andy?
85.
85. He said when he had just started, I called everybody in the boardroom and I said, I'd just ridden around, all the buildings were empty, and we got to get out there and fill them up. And within a year or two, all the buildings were filled. So the 80s were a great time.
In 1986, after 40 years of service, the historic Browns Wharf location would close. For the first time, all of Rukert's terminal business was located in Canton along Clinton Street from Pier 5 to Lazaretto.
As Bud and I have always said, we went on an expansion in the early 80s that has never stopped. And we're now this many years later, and we're just still, we're just expanding. We haven't had time to enjoy anything because it's just expansion.
We just keep on keeping on.